It is always a great opportunity when you get a chance to catch up with a longtime friend like my friend right here, Nick Metallinos of ESPN Australia. Nick, always great to see you here at the arena. We have the Nets and the Knicks today on a very special MLK Day. And I think the fans at home are really going to be enjoying this segment because I know you're going to give me an English lesson as well when it comes to saying some names, particularly the Greek Freak, which I usually say wrong on the show quite often. But first, your impressions of the Knicks this season and the Nets.
I think the Knicks are right about where they should be. People were talking playoffs early. I think that's part of the New York culture, I guess. When the team starts to look a little bit decent, people start to get a little bit carried away and talk playoffs. They're not quite ready for the playoffs, as we've seen. Obviously, they're hovering around, I think a couple of games below 500 at the moment. So I like what I've seen. They're playing, I think, as a unit where they haven't really played as a unit in times or in the past couple of years. You could put that down to maybe Carmelo. He's now gone, so maybe the team feels like they can play a little bit freer. You can put a little bit of that down to possibly Phil Jackson not being there, not forcing his systems and everything onto Jeff Hornacek. Jeff Hornacek is now being allowed to coach this team, so he's allowed to implement some of his own systems as well. So I just get the sense that they're playing a little bit freer. There's still a way to go with the Knicks. Porzingis obviously has talked about being tired in the last couple of weeks, so I don't know how much they can, use him in that sort of second half of the season in terms of leaning on him and relying on him to pull them out of situations. They're going to get there, I feel. I feel like they've finally turned a corner. We've talked about the Knicks, turning a corner for many, many years, but I feel like they're finally getting there. As far as the Nets, they're in the same situation. I've actually put them a little bit ahead of the Knicks in terms of their development and where they are. I really like what Sean Marks has done since he came into the organization. He's made some really shrewd moves. They're not the most talented team, but they play hard every single night and they're going to give you 100%. They've got a good young core. We've got to see what these young guys are going to bring, like Karis LeVert and Rondae Hollis-Jefferson. We've got to see where they fit in within the Nets. Are they going to eventually be role players? Are they going to eventually be, is he going to step up? I think Rondae Hollis-Jefferson is averaging 15 and 6 or 15 and 7, which is some pretty decent numbers. So let's see what happens when they get a fully healthy squad. Jeremy Lin, is he going to come back next season? I mean, obviously he's injured.
They've missed him.
They've missed him. They definitely have missed him. And, unfortunately, he hasn't been on the court as much as he'd like to. So we'll see. I think they've got a bright future ahead of them.
I know you're going to be traveling with ESPN to the All-Star Game in Los Angeles this year. What do you expect to see from the New York teams? Are we going to see any All-Stars this year?
Porzingis, I think, is probably the only logical one out of both those squads. I mean, I can't really see anyone on the Nets being called up. Porzingis is probably the only logical one and likely one, I believe. I think he might get a nod on there in some capacity.
As a reserve?
Yeah, in some capacity. I don't think he's going to be voted in as a starter. I think might get a reserve spot, which, I mean, if you look at his numbers and what he's been doing for the New York Knicks, you can't say that it's not deserved. So, if he makes it, I think he's going to deserve that spot.
And Kristaps, the leading scorer today for the Knicks, so we're going to go inside the locker room and take a look at what the Knicks and the Nets did today, this time meeting again here in Brooklyn.
We fought back, didn't play very well, but that was kind of the knockout punch. They took us out in the beginning of that fourth quarter, then dominated us the rest of the quarter.
We finished the game good. With a good lead. In the fourth quarter, we focused on how to make them struggle with the ball, struggle with the offense, and we just went at them.
I know you just arrived here now, but obviously knowing the Knicks' road struggles of late, how important was this victory, even though it's a road game, but here in New York?
Very, very important. I think we was on a 2 or 3 game losing streak. Just to get one tonight, going into Memphis. Very, very important, with the team's confidence, camaraderie. We have periods where we're kind of stagnant. We won't score, and then, the other team will. So we just got to continue to get better and watch film.
As we move towards the halfway marker for you, and I know, again, going with ESPN Australia to the All-Star Game in Los Angeles, what has been the biggest surprise of the first half of the NBA season?
I can give you two sides of the coin here. I can give you the biggest surprise in a good way and the biggest surprise in a bad way. Biggest surprise in a bad way for me personally are the Milwaukee Bucks. especially with the way that Giannis Antetokounmpo, that's how you pronounce it,
Which I get wrong all the time.
especially the way that Giannis started and the way he was playing. I feel like, and I know the Jabari injury hurts them a little bit, but I just felt like they should be better than 23-20 or whatever they are at the moment. They're in the 7th seed. I feel like if they were a top 3 or 4 seed in the East, which I thought they could be, Giannis would definitely be in the conversation for MVP, in that regards. Also, another one of my surprises, Oklahoma City Thunder. I actually thought they would be better than what they are at the moment. But the biggest surprise for me in a positive way, the Minnesota Timberwolves. I did not see them being number 4.
Karl Towns.
I did not see them being number 4 in the Western Conference. You look at the Western Conference, we talk about this year after year about how deep it is and how everyone's, capable of upsetting another team in the playoffs. And the Minnesota Timberwolves are sitting in the 4th spot at the moment. Like you said, Karl Towns is playing phenomenally. Good young roster. Jimmy Butler helps so much.
So now you grow up in Australia, but again, the Greek heritage, and you've gotten an opportunity to really make a name for yourself here in the NBA. You've gotten a chance to do a lot of big-time interviews, especially of late with ESPN. And I know you got one coming up with Ben Simmons, who might really be the Rookie of the Year this year.
I think he's definitely the Rookie of the Year so far. I'm not as certain of that as I was maybe a month ago, just because of the fact that Donovan Mitchell's been playing so well. Tatum's had a pretty good season. I still think Simmons is going to win. That's probably a little bit of my Australian bias coming through. I feel like Simmons is a transcendent player, though. If you look at what he's able to do on both ends of the floor, yes, the shooting, we all know the shooting's not at the best at the moment. That'll come. Even if it doesn't, I feel like he can impact the game in so many other ways where it's not going to really... If you look at him now, I'd like to bring this up. If you look at him now, teams are sagging off him. They're going under on screens, they're sagging off him, they're daring him to shoot, but he's still smart enough and talented enough to be able to score in other ways. So that's why I'm just not too concerned about that shooting thing at the moment, but definitely the leading Rookie of the Year candidate at the moment.
Talk a little bit about some of the projects you worked on of late.
We were out in Serbia midway through, last summer, doing a feature on Jonah Bolden just before he got drafted. So he was drafted by the 76ers. He's being stashed in Israel at the moment with Maccabi. We just filmed something with Aaron Baines out in Boston a couple of weeks back. Just a day in the life type of clip. It was great fun being out there. And obviously the Simmons piece we've got coming up, which the Sixers are holding a Australian Heritage Night against the Chicago Bulls on the 24th. So our piece will air on the 24th, the 25th in Australia. And it also ties in with Australia Day, which is on January 26th.
Nick, you're doing some outstanding stuff, man. It's definitely awesome to watch you.
Appreciate it.
All right, well, before we let you go, we also want you to make sure to tell everybody where they can check you out on social media and also where they can follow all this great content that you're putting out there.
On social media, it's just at my name, at Nick Metallinos, so NickMetallinos. It's a Greek surname, so sorry about all the letters. And you can find all my stuff on ESPN.com, ESPN.com.au.
You're the real Greek freak, to be honest with you.
Well, yes, I am, actually. I am. I'm the original one. I'm much older than Giannis.
Well, great to have you on the show, and thanks for the lesson, too, on saying the Greek freak's name.
How do you say it?
I can't say it, so that's all the time we have for today. Thanks, Nick, for being on the show.